Hey, mathletes. What we're going to take a look at in this video is we're going to go through the written response from the January 2019 diploma. Now, the written response are always interesting questions because in 30-2, friends, we've got two questions and each of the questions has four parts. And the questions are a bit of a story. They're linked together or soft linked together. So you'll always see a bit of a connection through parts A, B, C, and D. And one of the things I want to do as I go through here is that overall students don't do fabulous on their written response. And I'm going to talk about why, and I'm going to talk about ways that students are losing easy marks here. Okay. Again, it would be best if you have tried these questions yourself first. And again, I'll put the link to the diploma and the written response in the description of the video. Okay, so here was the first one, this written response question. And I know when, I was up marking this in Edmonton, you turn to this page, you go, holy cow. One of the things you got to remember about 30-2 is that it's application based. So there can be a fair amount of reading. This question by far has a lot of reading to it. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing for the sake of time. I'll let you read that on its own. It's about dominant and recessive genes. Sounds a lot like biology to me. Okay, and after all of that reading, we come down to here and it gives us these two tables. And what the first question says is for 1 mark. So if you notice, each of your two questions will be worth 7 marks. So the first question is worth 1 mark. Always. And I'll talk about how, again, easy ways to earn marks and easy ways to lose marks as we go through these things. So state the odds in favor of these parents having a child with free earlobes. If you had read the question, what you need is you need the dominant gene of the capital E. So it would be these 3. So the odds in favor are simply 3-1. Now, if you answered like that, I'm giving you 1 out of 1 as a marker. However, friends, let's be spending a little bit more time on these questions. And let's make sure that we're communicating to the markers what we're doing so that if we do make a mistake, we're at least going to benchmark and get some partial grades out of this. Okay, what I want you to do first is always to write everything on your scrap piece of paper first, and then transfer it over to your written portion of your exam. Treat it like an English exam, friends. Do your first draft, then do your good draft. Okay. What else would I have written here then? Well, I could have written something like this to communicate to the marker what I was doing. This is in favor to against. I could have written that there. I could have written this is free earlobes to not free earlobes, right? Let's tell the person marking what it is the 3 and the 1 represent. Okay, that's it. Because that way, friends, at least if I screwed up my numbers somehow, the person marking at least knows I was trying to get free earlobes to not free earlobes. And that might salvage something for me, and it might get me a 0.5 out of 1, depending on how the scoring guide is created. Wait, there's 1 easy mark. B, determine the probability of these parents, a child of these parents has a free earlobe and a widow's peak. Okay, so a couple of things I want to notice right off the bat. We just switched from odds to probability. Now, when I do odds to probability, someone once told me, actually, when I was marking this question, I believe, to always do this, the FAT, the FAT method. So what does that mean? Well, if I go back to the question and it says for the earlobes, there's 3 ways in favor that I have attached earlobes, and there's 1 against. So for the earlobes, it's 3 in favor, 1 against. That's 4 in total. For the widow's peak, I'll just do it in a different color here. For the widow's peak, again, I'm going to do this FAT method. which I think is brilliant. It makes it so easy. Okay, the ability to have a widow's peak is these two right here, that dominant gene. So there's 2 in favor, there's 2 against, there's 4 in total. So what's the probability that this child has free earlobes and a widow's peak? So the first thing I want to think about, friends, is these are independent events. They have no effect on each other. So if I wanted to, again, here's all I need to do for the bare minimum for marks. Probability I have free earlobes, 3 out of 4, because it's in favor over total, multiplied by 2 by 4. That's the probability that I have a widow's peak hairline, which I do. Okay, now I just simply going to multiply these things together. So just leaving it like that's not going to get you full marks. 6 over 16, and you could leave it like that, or I would write it as a fraction myself. Now, friends, a couple of things. That's going to get you full marks. That's 2 out of 2 right there. But here's what you should do to get some more marks, or to maybe, again, if you mess something up, to get benchmark at some partial marks. Let's communicate what we're doing. This is the probability of having free earlobes and a widow's peak. Well, what's that? Well, since they're independent events, that's the probability of having free earlobes and a widow's peak. And so when that's an and, what I'm actually going to do right there is maybe even just write my operation. Boom. I've communicated to the marker who's up in cold Edmonton, maybe cold Edmonton, and if it's January, right? What you're doing. Let's make it clear. Let's box my answer. Now, please, friends, there's no rounding instructions in here. So you shouldn't round. You should leave it as a fraction. If you did want to, this thing terminates to that. So that would be okay. Don't write these as percentages. We do not write probabilities as percentages. Okay? So there was 2 marks. Not such a bad question, in my humble opinion. All right, now there's 2, A and B done. What does C tell us? State whether the events of the child having free earlobes and, I like to underline that word, the child having a widow's peak are mutually exclusive or not mutually exclusive. Justify your response. Okay, this is where we need to know those directing words. So if I want to find my directing words, in the document with my formula sheet, the directing words are hidden in it somewhere. I don't know where, but they are hidden in it somewhere. My apologies, I don't have it up. You should know those directing words. All right. So justify means, give me an explanation. What's going on? Why have you answered the way you've answered? So maybe what I'm going to do here is mutually exclusive, not mutually exclusive. I like to think of this as a Venn diagram. Right? There's my Venn diagram. There's the universe. Oh, what do we have? Well, we've got a widow's peak. We've got free earlobes. And yeah, absolutely, friends. I can have both, right? I can have an intersection. So what does that mean? Well, because I can have both, so here's my justified part. I've demonstrated that it's not mutually exclusive. So I would then write a sentence. These are non-mutually exclusive events as a child can have both, and I don't want to say both, like both what? Both a widow's peak. I'm just going to use an abbreviation to save time. Don't use an abbreviation on your diploma. And a free earlobes and free earlobes. Again, see, this is why I would plan it out on my rough draft first, and free earlobes at the same time. There it is. I've answered the question and I've justified it. Okay. The other way to do that, friends, is you could have used your formula. So your formula for mutually exclusive, if you have widow's peak or free earlobes, well, because you go to try to add these things together, if you tried this, if you said widow's peak plus free earlobes, and if you tried to add these things together, well, we figured out the probability of having a widow's peak was 3/4, and the probability of having I got that backwards. Probability of having widow's peak is 2/4. The probability of having 3 earlobes is 3/4. Well, if I add that together, that's 5/4. Well, that's greater than 1, which means they're not mutually exclusive. They've got to have some level of intersection, which we see right there. Okay, so there's more than one way to answer that question. But again, it's important that you're writing a nice sentence in terms of justifying, talking about what's going on. All right, last one on number 1D. Tongue rolling can be considered a dominant characteristic. Yes, it can. I was just talking to my daughter about this. She's 7 and she's very upset that she can't roll her tongue. Based on the parents' genes, the probability that any one of their children will be able to roll their tongue is 3/4. So I can roll my tongue, but my daughter can't. So she's the opposite, right? She's the complement of that. If these parents have 2 children, determine, so that directing word means you better show me some work. The probability that both children will be able to roll their tongue, or, that's an important word, both children will not be able to roll their tongue. Okay, again, this is out of 2 marks, friends. The bare minimum that you're going to show to me to get these 2 marks is this. Okay, the probability that both children will be able to roll their tongue. The bare minimum I want to see for full marks then. There's one child and the other child rolling their tongue. Or, meaning I'm going to add, not be able to roll their tongue. And then all I would do is plop that in my calculator and get 10 out of 16. And if you felt like reducing that to 5/8. Okay, again, friends, you don't really need to reduce. I'm going to give you those full marks, but make the person marking, make their life easy, reduce. Hey, friends, that's the bare minimum I want to see, but that's 2 marks right there. What I really want to see as a marker is this. Tell me what you're doing. I want the probability that I can roll and intersection, roll, or the probability that I can not roll and not roll. Well, what's that? Because these are independent events, what happens with one child does not affect the other child. That's the probability of roll times the probability of roll. Oops, and then I wrote times as I was writing. You can tell I'm sick. Plus the probability of not roll multiplied by the probability of not roll. And there we go. Look at how much more communication I gave there. And it only took me a minute to do. Let's communicate what we're doing for the marker. Again, you want to keep in mind, friends, that the person marking isn't allowed to assume anything you have done if it's not on the page. I am only allowed to mark what I see on the page. It's not the same as when I'm in class, when I'm like, oh, yep. I understand what Sarah was trying to do there. She just made a little mistake, and I'm still going to give her 1.5 out of 2 because I know Sarah well. That's not the same here. I don't know you. I don't know your name. I've never seen your name, only your Alberta ID number at best. I'm not assuming anything. I'm only marking what I'm seeing. Leave nothing to the imagination and show your work. All right. Sorry, bit of a rant there. Okay, here's question 2. So now here's story number 2. So what this one is about, and I won't read the whole thing, but it's about Stan is drinking some coffee here and how much caffeine is in his body. And these data can be modeled by an exponential function. So when it's a regression, which is a very common first question for 1 mark, it always has to tell you what type of regression it is. All right. Underline it. Drives me wild. Students will answer this like as a quadratic or a logarithm. It literally tells you it's an exponential. Underline it. Then they give us the function. Well, what's everything mean? I always want to know that T is time and C is the amount of caffeine in Stan's body. All right. Question part A. For 1 mark, the easiest mark on your diploma, friends, write the equation of the exponential function that models the amount of caffeine in the body over time. Round A to the nearest whole and round B to the nearest hundredth. All right, try to get your rounding correct. We're very generous with how we mark rounding, but just get it correct. It's just easier, leaves less debate around the marking table. Okay, friends, all you got to do is go and punch this thing into your calculator and get the regression. At this point, I'm going to assume you know how to do that. If not, you can search up one of my regression videos. Okay, friends, for full marks, for the easiest mark on your test, all I need you to write is the regression formula, like that. Even, friends, if you didn't write it with C and T, if you wrote it with X and Y, I'm giving you full marks. Here's what students write in bright red so they don't get what they want. They write this. That's 0.5 out of 1. Reason? You're missing the Y. Where's the Y equal to? You need that. The other thing students do, this won't be you, because I'm telling you not to do this. They do this. They just list the values from their calculator. 0.5 out of 1. You were asked to write the function. You've got to write the function. Okay. And then sadly, like I said, a bunch of students, what they end up doing is they don't take the time to double check their data values. Do that. Okay. I would do this twice to make sure I had the exact values on a diploma. You've got 6 hours, friends. You're going to be done your diploma, most 30-2s, hour and a half to 2 hours max. You got 6 hours. Maybe this is the last diploma math test you ever write in your life. You can stick around for an extra half an hour and check your work. Think of it that way. If this is your last math test ever, and I hope it is, that's a fabulous day. I will never experience in my life, probably. But if it's your last time writing a math test, slow down. You got nowhere to go. That half an hour is going to kill you. I hope. Okay. What do we got here? All right. Stan has decided to drink 2 cups of coffee on his way to work in the morning because he's got a big diploma exam. Then the equation that models the amount of caffeine in Stan's body over time can be written as a new exponential function. Compare the equation of the new function to the old function, essentially. Okay, friends, what I really need you to know here is the word compare means tell me what's the same in what is different. Now, there's all sorts of ways that you could communicate this to the marker. Again, I would figure this out first on my scrap paper and then transfer it over. So the old function was this. The new function, well, this person's drinking 2 cups of coffee, and we kind of have to assume that they're shotgunning them, so all the caffeine's going in their body at once. There's a bit of an issue there. What that's going to do is it's going to double the A value. Why? We'll talk about that in a second. The rate of change stays the same. Caffeine leaves Stan's body at the same amount of time. It doesn't matter how much he's got in him. All right, now that's not going to get me full marks. That's just the 2 functions. Now let's explain what's happening here. So what I would say is something like this. I would say the A value for the new function, and sorry, my writing's not the neatest, I understand that. The a value for the new function would double to 300 as Stan drank 2 cups of coffee. Like that. Then what I'm going to say is I need to talk about what stays the same. So I'm going to say the b value is the rate of change. The a value, what I also want to get in here, friends, see, this is why I would plan this on a second page. The a value is the initial amount. That's what I really want to get in there as well. Okay. The b value, the rate of change, remains the same as the amount of caffeine. Does not affect this. Oh, just one N, sorry. Caffeine has no effect on this. Okay, now, there it is. There's 2 marks. Good to go. Now, friends, like I said, I would do this on a second page first to get my wording right, because you noticed I went back and I added in the initial amount. It's not like what I've got written down is ugly and the person's not going to understand it, but let's keep things again nice and clear. You wouldn't hand in your final English or social essay if it looked like that. Now, I'm going to do something here that drives me wild when I'm up marking. Please, friends, don't do this. I did the question wrong, and I realize I did the question wrong. Don't do this. And then try to squeak your work in over here. Don't do that. You would never hand in an English essay that looks like that. Do it on the scrap paper first, right? Okay, I know I'm ranting a little bit, but these are honestly the things I see up in Edmonton when I'm marking these things. Don't do that stuff. You wouldn't hand in an essay like that. Your teacher, English teacher, would just bundle it into a ball and throw it back at you. Don't do it in math either, right? Your math teachers have feelings too. Not as much as your English and social teachers, but we do have some feelings. All right, we're almost there. So for Leela, caffeine has a half-life of approximately 6 hours. If Leela ingested 250 milligrams of caffeine, she's got this function. Always figure out what R and T are. So R is the amount of caffeine in her body. T is time in hours. Always figure those out. Leela no longer experiences the effect of caffeine once it drops to 50. Algebraically, so you're not using a calculator here, you're not graphing it, is what I should say. Determine, show me your work, the amount of time. So right off the bat, I say to myself, I'm looking for T. That means I better know R. And I do know R. R is 50. Look at that. I've actually communicated to the marker. I know what's going on. Now, I write down my formula again. Please do that. Okay? Just in case. Do that. It's not a bad thing to do. Okay, what do we know? We know we need this thing down to 250, like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start solving algebraically. I'm going to divide both sides by 250. So that's 1 over 5 or 0.2. Now again, I'm going to, boom, look at that. I started on the left side of the page. I went down the page. I ran out of room. I come back up. Okay, there was probably more room on the diploma. I don't know for this work, but if not, that's how you want to write it. Okay, I can't make the bases the same. I have to convert this to a logarithm. So again, that's on your formula sheet. If you happen to forget it, I go through it on the multiple choice portion of this exam. Okay, convert to a logarithm, multiply both sides by 6. There it is. And now all I'm going to do is ram that thing in my calculator. When I do, I get T is approximately 13.93 something, something, something. And it says to the nearest hour. Well, I'm going to round this up to 14. Box it, and it's not a bad idea to write a sentence here. It takes Leela 14 hours to no longer feel the effects of caffeine in her body. Okay, it doesn't hurt to write a sentence. Communicate what you're thinking. All right, not bad. What's our last one? In a poll of 82 people in her office, Leela found that on a regular basis, 63 people drink coffee, 22 are tea, 15 did not drink either. Who are those people? Okay, so determine the number of people in the poll, both coffee and tea. It's the intersection. So again, let's go hot pink for our final question. Well, these are not mutually exclusive, right? I can drink both. So there's an overlap. What have we got? Let's label these things. This is coffee. This is tea. Okay, there's 82 people in the universe. Let's put that there. Now, what I'm going to say is Leela found that on a regular basis, 63 people consume coffee. 63, don't put that in your circle. 22 drink tea. 15 people don't like caffeine. Good for those people. I wish I was that person. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, these are non-mutually exclusive events. I know there's 82 people in the survey, but it seems like they didn't give me enough information to fill it in. Well, what I'm going to do then is say, well, how many people were in the survey? Were counted for in the survey? Well, 63 people coffee, 22 tea, 15 neither. What's that? 5, 0. Sounds like 100. Wow. Did I add those things correctly? That's a good number to have, eh? 85. I see 100 there. Okay. But friends, there's 100 people counted. There's only 82 people. So what does that tell me? That tells me that 18 people like both. Friends, boom. I don't need to find the other parts. I don't think. What did it ask me to do? Find the people who consumed, determine the number of people who consume both coffee and tea. And technically, I've answered the question. But what I'm going to do is a couple more things. I'm going to go and find these other parts. So coffee only is 63 minus 18, that's 45. Tea only is 22 minus 18, that's 4. And now what I'm going to do, friends, is I still haven't really answered the question. I think the marker would give it to me because they see that right there. I'm going to go boom. 18 people like both. Okay, friends, there it is. That's what I want to see for communication. I really hope that helped. And again, take your time, write everything on your scrap piece of paper. You're in no rush to get out of this exam. Go back, check your regressions again. Okay, friends, I wish you nothing but the best on your diploma. You will do fabulous.